a violent sexual assault that Dominique Strauss-Kahn committed against her. She has described that sexual assault many times to the prosecutors and to me. And she has never once changed a single thing about that account. The DA knows that. That was true the day it happened. It is true today. What they did not tell you upstairs in the courtroom today is that the victim herself is the one who came forward voluntarily with the information about her asylum application. She told me that she wanted to tell the district attorney the truth about how she first came to this country and about other matters. I then called the lead prosecutor and told her that the victim wanted to tell you everything, that she was afraid. I told the district attorney's office exactly what the victim told me. And the victim then met with the district attorney alone and described some of the things that she had not told them. Now, this is important. The only defense that Dominique Strauss-Kahn has is that this sexual encounter was consensual. That is a lie. Now, I'm going to give you the facts that show that's a lie. Number one, when the victim walked into that suite, she did so for one reason, and that was to clean that suite. She was told no one was inside that room, and she went into that room believing that no one was inside that room. And then Dominique Strauss-Kahn came out, running out of one of those rooms naked towards her. And he grabbed her breast first and started to attack her. He then grabbed her vagina with so much force that he hurt her. He grabbed her vagina with so much force that he bruised her vagina. When she went to the hospital later that day, the nurses who examined her saw the bruises on her vagina that were caused by Dominique Strauss' hand. And they took pictures of the bruises on her vagina, and the district attorney has those pictures. The next thing that shows that their claim of consensual sex is a lie is the fact that when Dominique Strauss-Kahn threw the victim to the floor, he tore a ligament in her shoulder. That is a medical fact. She now may need surgery for the damage he caused to her shoulder. And she told the prosecutors day one, my shoulder hurts. And she has been telling me for weeks when she met with me, rubbing her shoulder because she was in such pain. I sent her to a doctor right here in New York to look at her shoulder. That doctor was concerned and sent her to get an MRI, and then had a follow-up visit with her and determined that she suffered a torn ligament in her shoulder and that it was a recent injury. And he described to me that he's seen this injury with athletes who are knocked down, and when they about to fall, they try to brace themselves and they damage the ligaments in their shoulder. That is exactly what happened to the victim when Dominique Strauss-Kahn threw her on the ground. The other third point to show you that she was violently attacked in that room is that Dominique Strauss-Kahn ripped her stockings. There are holes, there are rips in her stockings, and the DA knows that. The next thing I want to tell you is that when she was fighting to get away, when she was on her knees and he was sexually assaulting her, after he finished, she got up and started to run for that door and started spitting Dominique Strauss-Kahn's semen out of her mouth in disgust all over that hotel room. So when you hear about the forensic evidence, the DNA evidence, she spit his semen on the wall, She spit it on the floor, and guess what? As soon as her supervisor came upstairs, she saw that. The security staff at the Sofitel, they saw that. The detectives of the NYPD, they saw that. And there was a prosecutor from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office who went into that hotel room on the day it happened, and she showed him where the semen was. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is that the medical evidence supports the victim's account. The forensic evidence supports her account. She was taken from the hotel to the hospital in an ambulance. A grand jury has already found her account credible. Now, here's the situation. The victim is a victim also of female genital mutilation. It happened to her in Africa against her wishes. And she was very concerned that a young daughter that she gave birth to in Africa would also have to endure female genital mutilation. And she was desperate to prevent that from happening to her baby girl. And so she came to America. She came to America because of the great promise of this country. And her asylum application is not completely accurate. Upstairs, the district attorney talked about a false rape. The victim was actually raped in Africa by soldiers. The mistake she made is she was afraid to tell the prosecutors that the rape did not occur in connection with the asylum application because she did not want to be deported, because she's afraid of having to go back to Guinea. She was raped in Africa. Now, what's very, very important, all of these statements that were leaked by the district attorney's office concerning whether she was involved in drugs and so on, that's a lie. Our concern is that Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance is too afraid to try this case. We believe that he's afraid that he's going to lose this high-profile case, like he lost recently the high-profile case brought against the two police officers who were accused of raping the woman who was drunk. And like he lost the two high-profile cases this week involving the Deutsche Bank fire, where tragically two firefighters lost their lives. But the district attorney has an obligation to stand up for this rape victim. And there's something else troubling that they won't tell you. When I brought this information to their attention, I trusted the district attorney. I actually trusted them. And I let them meet with my client while I went to the Second Circuit Judicial Conference a couple of weeks ago in Lake George, New York. Those 3 days that I was away, they met with my client. I didn't bother them, but I checked in on the second day, and I found out something very disturbing. I spoke to the victim, and I spoke to a 15-year-old daughter. And I said, "How's it going?" They said, "Not too well." I said, "Why?" The daughter told me that they were mistreating her mother, the prosecutors, in the Manhattan District Attorney's office. I told them to stop the meeting immediately until I was able to get back to New York City and meet with them. When I got back to New York City, I spoke with the victim and I met with her daughter. And both of them individually met with me with tears in their eyes and told me that the prosecutors here had repeatedly screamed and yelled at her. The little 15-year-old daughter told me that she was outside of the DA's office when her mother was behind closed doors with the prosecution team. And all she could hear were the prosecutors screaming and yelling at her mother as she was trying to do her homework. She became concerned for her mother. And then when there was a break and they went out to talk to someone, they returned. That someone was me. Because when I found out that they were mistreating her, I told them to stop going forward with the interview. They wanted to continue. I told them, wait till I get back to New York City. What the victim's daughter told me is that when the prosecutors walked back into that office, they screamed at her mother, "Get out, get out, get out of here!" And they threw her mother out of that office. This little girl had tears in her eyes when she told me how they had treated her mother. I was so concerned that I demanded a meeting with the district attorney himself, Cy Vance. They didn't grant it. So I had to meet with the second in charge, Dan Alonzo, who I worked with when we were both federal prosecutors in Brooklyn. And I complained to Dan Alonzo about how they had been treating the victim. And I told them clearly that the way they had treated the victim was no way to treat a rape victim. Then, the following week, after I had been on this case since May and had been at this office many times, had many phone calls with the prosecutors, many meetings, many discussions, I learned for the very first time by reading the New York Times that one of Cy Vance's top aides, the third in charge, the woman who's in charge of the entire trial division, is married to one of Dominique Strauss-Kahn's lawyers. She's married to the man who's been in this courtroom trying to get Dominique Strauss-Kahn off for his attack on the victim. That troubled me because I believe that as the lawyer for the victim, the district attorney had an obligation to tell me that one of his top aides was married to one of Dominique Strauss-Kahn's lawyers in this case. And so I demanded a meeting with Cy Vance. And I was granted a meeting with Cy Vance. And I asked Cy Vance, how could he ensure that his number 3 person would not get information from all the other prosecutors here and inadvertently tell her husband when they're at home at night. I said, I want to make sure that you have taken the necessary steps to truly wall off this prosecutor. I want to see the email that went to every prosecutor in the office saying that Karen Friedman, Ignifolio, had recused herself. I wanted to see the letter that went to every prosecutor in the office. And guess what? There is no letter. There is no email. Cy Vance told me, tell the victim you've spoken to the DA. As if that was sufficient. And then when I asked Cy Vance to explain the New York Times report that after Dominique Strauss-Kahn was taken off that Air France flight by the Port Authority police on May 14th and turned over to the custody of the NYPD, and after he had been taken all the way up to Harlem to the Special Victims Squad and had been in that station house for at least 5 hours and had asked for an egg sandwich, asked for coffee, said he wanted to call Europe because he had a meeting with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel the next day, had never asked to speak to a lawyer, said his handcuffs was too tight. Why didn't the New York City Police Department, with those very fine and experienced detectives of the Special Victims Squad, attempt to ask Dominique Strauss-Kahn whether he had attempted to rape or sexually assaulted the victim? It does not make sense. It is policing 101. that when you have a suspect in custody for a very serious crime of rape, murder, robbery, one of the first things you do is you try to get them to make statements. They didn't do that in this case. Instead, for 5 hours he sat there and no one had the guts to go up to him and ask him whether he had committed these acts. On his own at 9 o'clock that night, Dominique Strauss-Kahn said, "I want to speak to my lawyer. Can I have my cell phone?" And he called his lawyer, spoke to his lawyer, hung up, and at that point, detective said, "Do you want to talk about the incident?" And he said, "I was all ready to talk about the incident, but my lawyers told me not to." So I asked DA Cy Vance, why wasn't Dominique Strauss-Kahn questioned before he asked to speak to his lawyer? DA Cy Vance had no answer at all. That does not make sense. So now, what you have to understand is relatively straightforward. We believe that the district attorney is laying the foundation to dismiss this case. Anyone can see that. They agreed to let Dominique Strauss-Kahn freely roam the streets of New York City or any other city in the United States, knowing full well that the victim to this very day maintains that he sexually assaulted her in that room, knowing very well to this very day that the forensic evidence shows that, knowing very well to this very day that they have a picture of her bruised vagina, knowing very well to this very day that she suffered a tear to her ligament when he threw her down to the ground, and knowing very well to this day that they have a pair of stockings that were ripped by Dominique Strauss-Kahn. So the district attorney of New York County has an obligation to stand by this rape victim. He has an obligation to stand up for all women who have been raped or sexually assaulted. Now, it is a fact that the victim here made some mistakes, but that doesn't mean she's not a rape victim. And so all of this stuff that they leaked to the New York Times was designed to discredit this woman. And I spoke to her a little while ago, and through her tears, through her hurt, she asked me, "Why did they do this to me?" And I said, "I don't know why." And now she is determined. She's not going to remain in hiding anymore. She's going to come before you all, and she's going to tell you what Dominique Strauss-Kahn did to her, and she's going to tell you what the prosecutors in his office did to her. Because we don't have confidence that they're ever going to put Dominique Strauss-Kahn on trial. So the victim will stand before you and tell you, because she said, "I will go to my grave knowing the truth, knowing what this man did to me." So, she's not here. That is the truth. And here's the situation. The DA called me yesterday at 5:30 at my office and said, "Ken, can you come meet with us right now?" 5:30. I said, "No, can we talk?" Yes, they called me at 6 o'clock. And they told me that they had put together a letter of some of the statements that our client made, the victim made. And they said, "Ken, we turned that over to the defense attorneys. We had to." I said, "That's fine. But I think that some of the things that you turned over, is it really Brady?" "Yes, it's Brady." What they didn't tell you clearly up in that courtroom is that everything that's listed in that letter, every single thing that's listed in that letter, you all will get a copy of it, came from the victim voluntarily. No one in this office could deny that I'm the one who called them and told them that the victim wanted to voluntarily tell them things. They told me yesterday, "Ken, when we go to court, we're going to tell the judge that Ken Thompson's the one who told me about this." But you really didn't hear that upstairs.
What were the misstatements and why did you make them?
Yes.